This episode of Test Drive is brought to you by Elmec and their EV Duty Smart Home Charger. Last year, I got to drive the all-new Kia Sorento, and it gave us a pretty good look of the future for Kia's vehicles, making sort of a smaller Telluride out of one of their more popular vehicles. Now, for 2022, not much has changed, but we are looking at the PHEV, the plug-in hybrid version of Kia's mid-size crossover. This, my friends, is a 2022 Kia Sorento PHEV SX. The top-end trim sold here would be the SX Prestige in the US. So what has changed for 22? Not too much. Really, it's just the badging on the outside and inside. We're now seeing the new Kia badging throughout, and some features have become standard on the lower trims, but when you compare it to the SX that we did last year, there's not much different. Although with the plug-in hybrid, things are a little different under the hood. This vehicle is about $7,500 Canadian more than the regular SX we drove last year, or about $8,700 in the US more, built the same way. Now, we do have the snow white pearl paint on here with the navy blue leather interior. Those are very nice upgrades on this. I think that it looks very nice. Paint is a little bit cheaper here than it is in the US, but it is still an upgrade to go with the white, which is sort of interesting. But under the hood, we have a 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine plus the electric motor. It produces a combined 261 horsepower and uses a 6-speed automatic transmission with a 13.8 kilowatt hour battery. So quite good numbers there from a mid-size SUV such as this. Kia Canada says you should get about 51 kilometers fully electric. Usually with that kind of battery pack, we're looking at about the mid-40s, so it is pushing it a little bit more. We will be talking about that on our road test. But essentially, this is the Kia Sorento that we have come to know and like with the plug-in hybrid system. So we are going to be taking on the road. I want to talk about how the fuel economy has differed with this compared to the one that we drove before with the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, the non-electrified version, to see if this makes more sense. If you live in an area that maybe doesn't have as many rebates, does this make sense to go up to? Because even here in Quebec, you're still going to be paying a little bit more after the government incentives for this vehicle. So will you get that money back, and everything else that you need to know if you're in the market for the 2022 Kia Sorento plug-in hybrid SX. All right, folks, before we get on our road test, I want to talk about the fuel numbers because there's a few things to go over. I've got my notes. It's easier if I'm not driving. We drove the ICE version of the Sorento a little while ago. We completed our test loop in that in 8.9 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, I did a test loop with this without charging it up, so it was just essentially a regular hybrid vehicle. It completed our test loop in 8 liters per 100 kilometers, so it's a 0.9 liter per 100 kilometer difference. If you multiply that by the $1.74.9 it costs for gas over the course of 100,000 kilometers, 900 liters of extra fuel used, you're looking at about $1,500 Canadian. We talked about how this is $7,500 more than the regular gas version of the Sorento, so it's $1,500 of gas savings. But here in Quebec, you get a $4,000 rebate plus the federal $2,500 rebate on this vehicle. Now that will change though. The Quebec government is reducing the amount you're going to be getting starting the 1st of July 2022. You're only going to be able to get $2,500 for a plug-in hybrid like this, so it will take a little bit longer to pay it off. But if you were to buy one now, you can hopefully pay it off a little bit sooner. But how about the test loop with the vehicle fully charged up? Now, we couldn't really get an accurate number of how far we drove fully electric because this car just refuses to do it. But I did complete this test loop in 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers, which is very good for a mid-size plug-in hybrid such as this. So that is a 2.6 liter per 100 kilometer difference in the vehicle. Over 100,000 kilometers of driving, it's 2,600 liters of fuel saved with this, averaging out to be about $4,500 Canadian. So you're going to be saving a whole lot more if you're going with the plug-in hybrid with this and ultimately using it as a plug-in hybrid. Now let's continue with the road test. All right, so we've got the fuel economy numbers out of the way, which is good because I'm telling you, it's very difficult to go over that stuff and make it make sense. And I do apologize. I had to actually rush through the end of that as somebody came up to my property while I was filming. So let's talk about the vehicle itself, and I did mention we weren't able to give you the number of how far we could actually go fully electric. I've had some issues with this vehicle, which brings us to the point of the title, that this isn't quite as polished as I was expecting. The execution on this vehicle isn't quite what I expect now from these South Korean manufacturers, because usually everything that we drive from them is great. And don't get me wrong, the Sorento is a fantastic mid-size consumer crossover. I love the layout, the interior space is great, comfort is good, design excellent. You want to know a little bit more about it, take a look at the video that we did on it. But the plug-in hybrid stuff, that's the issue that I'm having, and it's so strange because it's not Kia's first. You know, we drove the Optima plug-in hybrid a while ago, and the Niro has been out for a while with plug-in tech, so I'm not quite sure why this one isn't quite as polished, but there's a few things I have noticed. Now today, for example, yeah, it's a little chillier out. It's about 4 degrees, 5 degrees when I started it up, and right now it is 12 degrees, quite a bit nicer than it was this morning. But when I drove this morning, the car was completely charged, 100%, and it started the gas system. Now you could argue, okay, well maybe it's because you're putting on the heat, putting on the air conditioning, whatever it may be. And yeah, I could kind of understand that. But even when I pulled it out to film the segment that you just watched, where I was talking about the fuel economy, I pulled it out of the driveway, the engine started up. So we have had that issue with some of the plugins that we've done before, where it's just like not really working, in the sense that maybe the HVAC is pushing it on, and you could argue that. But yesterday was 17 degrees here, so I thought, great, got a plug-in hybrid, car is fully charged up. I'm going to turn off the air conditioning, turn off the heat completely. I'm going to drive this vehicle in complete electric mode, windows down, and cruise around. My plans were thwarted there as well, as I got into the car, started driving, and the engine started up. So some strange stuff going on there. But not only that, the EV light on the dashboard, it stays on pretty much all the time. When I come to a stop and it's running the gas, it turns off. But while I'm actually driving the vehicle, for some reason, it's turning on. So it's not quite working the way that it should be, which I don't really like. I mean, when that EV light is on, you're supposed to be fully electric. And again, every other plug-in hybrid, even the ones that I've driven from Kia or Hyundai, have all done that. But for some reason with this, I have the energy flow screen on, not now, because thankfully it's using the electric system. But in the past, since I've been driving it, it has used the gas system, and it still says I'm in EV mode, which you're not. The gas system's running. Even though the gas system says it's only charging a pretty much full battery, it's still running it. You can hear it going. Even when I had it in the garage, I did a remote start just to see if it would pull energy from the wall, because I always keep these vehicles plugged in. And it didn't do it there either. I actually remote started it. The battery started up, started heating up the vehicle, but it wasn't pulling any new energy from the wall. And then the engine started up while it was in the garage. So I'm not 100% thrilled on some of the little experiences I've had with that so far. So as an SUV goes, as a consumer crossover goes, this has been great. As a plug-in hybrid, not quite there. We're almost there, and maybe it's just because it's a new vehicle. Maybe there's some weird tweaking that needs to be done to make this work a little bit better. But I do hope that Kia can get those things sorted out, because I do like it. And I mean, you know, the idea of driving a plug-in hybrid like this is to save the most you can on fuel. You want to be able to use a lot of it in town without having to use the gas system. And if it's kicking in all the time, that's not good. So I'll let you know, we've been in electric mode pretty much since I started this, even though idling in the driveway for about 5 minutes, it was in gas mode. I'll let you know if it kicks back over. But aside from that, though, I have enjoyed the drive on this. Very smooth, very quiet. The power is there. I don't think you're going to notice a huge difference between this and the 2.5 liter turbo 4-cylinder, because, you know, they produce about the same power. You get 2,000 pounds of towing with this. Not a huge amount, but, you know, if you're looking to do some light towing, you can do it with this. But again, the idea, I think most people who are going to be looking at this, they do want to save some fuel at the pump, and that's going to be the way to do it. By having the plug-in hybrid system, you don't have to worry as much if it's working as intended. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to get this thing in the summer to see if my experience has changed, but it is important to know. But aside from that, you've got, you know, the basic stuff that you would be looking for, things that we like, i.e. a driver-only air conditioning system. So I've had that on all the time. It's only pumping out air in front of me, so that the rest of the vehicle, it's not wasting any energy. There's some scheduling options as well. If you have scheduled charge times. If you have off-peak charging or off-peak power consumption, depending on your hydro utility, might be a little bit better, so you can schedule things like that. It's not for the climate control systems, though. Unfortunately, I did test that. It will not precondition the vehicle to a temperature. Bit of a bummer there, but again, it's a plug-in hybrid. From an EV, for sure, we'd like to see that, but I suppose the reasoning on that is it would start up the engine. So if it's parked in a garage that doesn't have a door open, it's going to be a big problem. Ultimately, if you're looking for a plug-in hybrid vehicle, there are more options now than there were even last year. Something like this is new for this year. So you've got some more choice in the marketplace now, this being one of the larger ones. You know, up until now, it's been mostly the smaller, the compact crossovers in the consumer segment. So it is nice to see some slightly larger vehicles. And if you're looking at that from a price perspective, your market will obviously vary. $7,500 difference between this and the regular gas version is quite a bit, depending on where you are. Maybe you've got some rebates. I know in the States it said it's like $6,000 or $6,700 or something, depending on where you are. I think California. So you've got a little bit more options there, depending on which market you're in. But for us here, you know, if you were somehow able to buy one now, even though there's a huge waiting list for these vehicles, you would save that $6,500 off of the purchase price. So again, you'd be looking at about 67,000 kilometers of driving before you pay it off if you're not charging it. Again, I don't know why you would buy this and you don't have a charger, but I guess there are some people out there that have no charging solutions and they still want one of these vehicles. But if you are able to charge it up, again, depending on how you drive, but on an average, you should be saving quite a bit. It's going to take you 35,000 kilometers of driving to essentially have paid off the difference that you'll be paying for this. So I think it's quite reasonable with the rebates. Definitely works out well. And I've been enjoying it, even though, you know, again, hasn't been running in full electric mode the whole time. I'm still saving quite a bit more on fuel than I would be normally. So my fuel economy, very nice with this. Now, if you have any questions about this episode of Test Drive, please let me know in the comments below. I do try to get back to everybody that I can. So leave a comment below, give a thumbs up to the video if you liked it, and also consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Until next time, thanks for watching and take care.